Okay, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Nnpcf AGM for 2023. I'm Sarah Clarke, one of the co-chairs, and I also am the steering group member for the South East, as well as playing an active leadership role within my local Parent Carer Forum as well. Tina?
Good afternoon, my name is Tina Emery. I'm the other co-chair. I also sit in the Southwest, so I'm the Southwest Regional Representative, and I am part of my local forum too.
Okay, so to start with, we're going to have a look at the last financial year for 2022 to 2023. Then we're going to do a little bit around what we've been doing since April in this first part of the financial year. And then we want to have a look at what the priorities are with yourselves around what we should be doing moving forward. Thank you. We'll start with the last year.
Nice smiley face.
I need to do my next slide, don't I, Chris Whitty bit. So last year at the virtual conference, we asked you what your priorities were, and these were designed by the Parent Carer Forums. Lots of work has been carried out on all of these different areas. The trickiest one has been for us, and it is for you as forums, is around the well-being for parent carers. We're all in agreement that the priority really is the health and well-being of our parent carers, because we've seen a massive decline in that over the last several years. We're still working on what we can do around this, because actually this is a tricky part because it's not within our grant and our gift to give. So we have got a few things in line around this, and we will do our best to get that out to you as soon as possible. But we're really aware that this is probably the biggest aspect that we haven't been able to thoroughly produce currently, but all of the other areas of work we've done masses of work on, and they will be shown later on in the different meetings that Tina's going to talk about. Next slide, please. So the other bit we asked you was what else should we be looking at, and no surprise, it was all around inclusion in mainstream school, employment for our young people, post-16, transitions into adulthood, transitions generally, and early years. I don't think there is any aspect of any part of SEND that wasn't covered, and we are really aware that we try and cover as much as we possibly can in order to ensure that every aspect of the experience our young people have is covered. Next slide, please. So we asked a really unhelpful question around how the difference between our strategic work and our here and now work, and what the importance was. And unsurprisingly, it came out as equal, that both are as important as everything else. And every opportunity that we get, all our strategic work within the change programme and any other pieces of work that we do, we are ensuring that they are still thinking about what they can do here and now for those families that are in crisis, and how important it is that we support that and the places that are missing at the moment. So we're well aware that there's lots of educational vacancies, or not vacancies rather, children out of education, and that we need to be looking at that and how we can support those families as best we can. So last year in April 22, we had a look at our values, and we did this with a consultant. We discussed it with Parent Carer Forums and our wider partnership group as well. And unsurprisingly, we had co-production as the heart of everything, as well as the integrity and how important our integrity was. Passion, was a tricky one. So we looked at this, and it was a word that we debated a lot. But however, we are all really passionate about making a difference and changing that lived experience for all of our families, and making sure that there is positive change in place. And again, collective lived experience won't be surprised. It's why we are here and what we do. And the challenge and impact, we were supposed to stick to single word answers, but we didn't achieve that, because actually you can't have challenge without impact. And that was really important to us, that we made sure that the challenge was in place and it was making a difference to our families. Next slide, please.
So it's over to me. It's now, Sarah's going to be slightly relieved. It's now my turn to speak. I do apologise. I do have a cold still, so if you can't hear me, let me know and I'll try and speak up. But that's why I'm drinking water, because I've got a little bit of a cough going on. So hopefully you can hear me. So I just want to touch on the work that we've done over the last year, and also the work that we're going to be doing moving forward, because we do have an idea of where this is going. Okay, so consultation. So we have got a dedicated management team. I will talk about that later on in the slides, but we do have a dedicated person who looks at consultation and policy. So she's been rather busy, is Claire, over the last year, and she's been busy already so far this year, and we'll touch on that in a second. But the Parent Care Forums were absolutely fantastic in sharing our Send Green paper green paper survey, green paper review survey. We had over 1,200 responses, and that gave us an idea of where we were going to go in our presentation at the conference in Bristol last year. But again, we'll touch on that in a second. Last year, we completed a set of consultations, and here is just a few of them, as well as being involved in quite a few parliamentary select committees, not just about education. We had one about dentistry as well, and other select committees and reports where we are actually named in those said reports. So it's been really important for us to do. And not just that, it's not just about surveys and about you having a conversation with us as regional reps, but it's also about active case studies. They have been invaluable to us, and we've only just started doing them in the last year. And currently there's 7 active case studies where we're literally gathering data across a whole range of different subjects. And again, we'll share them in a little while, but it's generated over 400 responses. And these are literally families' stories of things that are relevant to the case studies. And they are really, really good information. It's really good intel to have. And we anonymise them and use them in our everyday work. So we'll touch on that again in a second, but it's been really, really invaluable to us. So our comms has increased again over the last year. Our website hits, so we're sharing a lot more stuff on our website. All our social media posts are linked to our website, which has meant that actually the traffic to our website has increased. Social media reach is up on average 49% per month, but we are looking at new ways we can communicate. What we're finding is Facebook is slightly decreasing, but that's to be expected. Not everybody uses Facebook, for one, and also the newer cohort of families do not use Facebook either. So we will be asking you later on about what social media platforms you would like us to use and any other ways we can communicate. And we are looking at developing our website further, so we're going to be pursuing funding to do this. So we're really looking at comms because we think comms is so important to the everyday work that we do. And at the end of the day, you can only do your work if you're properly informed. And what we find is in our local work as part of the forums work that we do, actually it does give you better insight if you know what national programmes are coming down, and therefore it feeds into your local and regional work. So we know comms is important to you as it is to us, so we will be looking at developing that further. So participation, Jackie's been working really hard. She's got 15 national reps who give up their time with their local forums and their spare time to do work for us, and we are internally grateful for all the national reps that do this work for us, because we can't be everywhere for all of the time. They completed 600 hours of work last year, which is an increase of 180%. The increase is there because during COVID, we couldn't do a lot of the work for national reps. The national rep work slowed down considerably. So we're not all that bothered about, well, not all that bothered, concerned, shall I say, of that increase. It was to be expected. Work includes conflict hubs. We're setting safe services for disabled children, which is an NHS work stream. And of course, the BASE conference, which is around work and further education. So here is the finances overview for the last year. This is new figures that we've just produced, and obviously this will go to Companies House. We actually fed on the finances last year as well. This is a new thing now that we're a KIC. We will do need to inform you of our finances. And here is about our current and ongoing work.
So that over to me again.
It is.
And I love this graphic because I think it really does depict how the Send Green Paper review has gone. It is a winding road. I'm very bumpy at that with how it's gone. So it feels like the forever ending. So we did start with the Green Paper, and as Tina said, we did submit work into that as well with our 1,200 responses, but the government received over 30,000 responses into that. And that work has fed into the implementation plan, which has then fed into setting up the Send AP implementation board, which Tina and I sit on, and that oversees some of the work. And from that work, it's then gone into the change program, and the change program has caused quite a lot of kerfuffle, I think is probably the right way to say it, around the comms, particularly for our forums. So it's set into the 9 different regions, and we have change partner programs in each area. And it's going to be an ongoing piece of work until 2025. And I think the really important part is it is a regional project, and everybody is going to get in. So it's going to be looking at all the enablers and the barriers. It's a test program, and I think that's the other part that we have to really remember. It's testing the principles that came out of that green paper review, and to make sure that they're fit for purpose and they are going to make the changes that we need and we all desperately want to see, and how we want the system to become less frustrating and less of a battle for our families to actually go through the system. There isn't any legislative changes at the moment, so they're going to test all the different parts to it, and then they will review whether or not we will be needing legislative change. Next slide, please. So these are the 9 areas. Every area has a lead within their partnership program, except for in the Southwest, but that's been done jointly. They will test the variety of different things, and it's not all going to be done at the same time. So it's really important to remember not everything's going to be rolled out at the same time. So you've got your tailored lists, your standard educational templates, so that they can be moved from area to area. So it was one of the big asks around from families, is that they wanted something that they could take from area to area without having to restart. They're looking at agency panels, and they're looking at mediation. And each of the little areas have actually got people and local authorities that are at different stages of their development. So they're testing how it works in different areas where they have different systems set up. Then they will be talking to the whole of the region, ideally, to actually work out what those enablers and barriers are, so that they can make sure that anything that is implemented is tweaked and made and could be the best it can when we roll out and get that proper system change. It's a golden opportunity, but change is also really difficult. There are lots of frustrations, and I think there are lots of issues around deep understanding around what is actually going to happen with it. We are talking to the DFE and the change program team a lot around comms and how we can support families, particularly, to understand it and make sure that they're fully aware that it doesn't affect any of their legal duties at the moment, because it isn't going to change anything in terms of the law for these families, and they can opt in and out, particularly around the format for the plans.
And it's really important to add that the reason there isn't any legislative changes that is needed is because of the general election. So we are due a general election probably in the next year. So our vision is that they're testing it now to make sure that these things are suitable. And then once we've had a general election, any legislative changes that needs to happen will happen once the general election is over, is our thoughts on this. And obviously that's not confirmed, but that's our thoughts on it. So this is me, I think.
It is.
So the financial sustainability programs. So of course, feed into that change program, and on the back end of it is around those financial sustainabilities. What Alistair said in the meeting yesterday is about how we can make the system work. He talked about how much money has been put into the system, and yet children's outcomes are still not being met. So one of the things they are looking at is how much money can we put into the system, and actually how much value for money do we get it from the system, and actually how does this benefit families. And 2 programs which are there is Delivering Better Value for Send and Safety Valve. The first one, the Delivering Better Value for Send, is a short program. In fact, it's due to end early next year. There was 3 tranches, so 3 sort of waves, if you like, of different local authorities that went through it. Originally, it was 55 local authorities, and a few have dropped out, and a couple have been added. That programme is now coming to an end. So the tranche 3, so the final cohort of local authorities are about to finish the programme. There is no conversations for it to continue. Interestingly, those that were in tranche 2 and tranche 3 have been added an extra module around the financial sustainability. The data that the DFE collected and collated from tranche 1 has been fed back to government, and government have gone, well, actually, we need to look at financial sustainability, and have added an extra module, which is being led by some DFE advisors and CIPFA, and CIPFA is the financial arm of the project, to do with accountancy and things like that. So that is going to be interesting as it comes to a close. Safety valve is slightly more controversial to us. We are getting very mixed messages around co-production. Some areas are not having anything co-produced, and parent care forums feel that they're being done too, as well as the wider, parent care community. But some are saying actually they are co-producing it. What we're finding is it's the newer for local areas that are joining Safety Valve now that seem to be more co-producing it than the previous cohorts. Again, comms is very loosely shared. DBV has got a dedicated website which you can find, and you could go and look out for, so the information's on there. Safety Valve has not, and we only get comms when the plan has been signed and agreed and is shared. And families are finding that really, really tricky. And what we also know is that forums are also finding it tricky when comms to the parent carers are being received from other websites talking, and they are then sort of not attacking, but they are challenging the forums around what the work is happening, and we're finding that really difficult. So our message back to the government and the DFE and the permanent secretary who we met a couple of weeks ago, and that news article's on our website, is that actually we need better comms. We need better comms so we can be informed, not just for us as parent care forums, but also the wider community of parent carers. So therefore they will know what is happening in regards to the financial sustainability of local authority areas. And it's in our best interest to make sure that that happens, because what we don't want is for local authority areas to go bankrupt and then it go over to statutory services only, which is also a possibility. So this is really, really important that we're part of those conversations. So of course we've got, is this me? We've got autism in schools programme as part of the NHS long-term plan. That is still ongoing. It was launched and it was a 10-year plan, and the work in that is still continuing. Autism in schools programme is a current programme. We're not quite sure what's going to happen in the future in regards to that, because the funding for all the projects stopped and it then went into ICB areas termed as autism, so you could then spend the money on autism in schools programme or the pathway. That money is current, so if you've not had a discussion with your ICB around the autism money and how it's badged and how it's used, then please do speak to your ICB about that. They've got until March to spend it. But the Autism in Schools project, where it's old money and it's an active programme that's happening currently, it's probably happened for the last 2 to 3 years, that is still continuing where funds allow. The key working project again is again the money's devolved to the ICB areas, but we still are actively looking at community of practice. The feedback on the project for anybody who's got the key worker that's been around for a couple of years, the feedback is fantastic, and we really do want to continue those conversations around how we continue that and how it can develop and evolve to something that's really useful for all families. And some forums areas, the key working project has only been around for about a year and it's still having a few teething issues. So we need to learn from each other. So those that are really established, how can we learn good practice and co-production in those areas that are literally just getting off the ground? Of course, the CETR work, you told us in our Wordle that that's really important, and we are feeding into the national review for that as well. And of course, the guidance for executive lead roles within integrated care boards, we helped produce that. And I think it's really good about focusing on co-production. So if you haven't seen it, let us know and we can share that with you. Over to you, sir.
So part of the accountability in the system is the launch of the new Ofsted CQC new framework that we had for local area inspections. And I think overall, we do have a survey going out on it, and actually that's been fed back as we've gone through the year. So if you haven't fed back and you are an area that has been inspected, please do get in touch if you'd like to respond to the survey. I will be sending out nagging emails again, because we are going to be doing a report to Ofsted CQC on the Parent Carer Forum experience at the end of this year. we've had quite a good response to the survey, but it'd be really great to have everybody's feedback within that. The biggest challenge that we have really heard is around the parent carer meeting that we used to have under the old system, and that has been really missed by our families. They've not felt that they've had the opportunity to speak to the inspectors, and how that's been dealt with in different areas has actually been varies very much on the different inspectors and how they've done it through the system. I think this, for one thing, the guidance has made it a bit tricky as well for parent care forums on how it's worded about having how they input families input into the parent PCF, because actually that's created a little bit of hostility, and some families have thought that they could actually attend the meeting with the parent care forum. So we are talking to them about that and how we can potentially change that, because that is really one of the critical things. The other part of that we've asked is around whether we could have a little bit more referencing on how they came to the conclusions that they did, so that the reports are a little bit more easily understand the depth of investigation that is carried out. So, for example, they don't currently now report on the number of people that completed the survey, what the key lines were from those surveys. So I think it would really help families if they understood whether it was 300 or 3,000 that responded, and what the key themes of that was. Also, when they do their 6 cases, what are the key lines of inquiry that come out of that, so that families are really aware. It would also mean that if other organisations, because a few of us have some campaign groups in our area and other voluntary sector who also like to try to input into, and rightly so, into the inspection, whether we could have a list of other people and areas that have been able to input into that, so that people understand the depth of lived experience that is actually going on and looked at, and how they come to these conclusions. So we think it would be really helpful. So we do have Ofsted and CQC coming to our conference in February face to face. So they're going to also be looking at a year on and what they've learnt from the inspections. And part of the report that I will do will also feed into that as well. So it's really important that we have your feedback and we can help create some of that change.
Absolutely, feedback is key. Okay, so talking of feedback, as if by magic, there's a slide. So this is the active case studies that we've got currently live, and it's looking at an array of subjects that people have asked us for, which feeds into our daily work. So no EHCPs, but needs not being met, so they're struggling. Attendance, so the attendance one was really important. We did that on the back of the Rachel D'Souza's Children's Commissioner report that she did last year around people not attending school, and how that they wanted 100% attendance in school. And there was quite a lot of sort of back conversations around that, and quite rightly so. So we developed that case study, and those findings we are using in those types of meetings. One of the requests as well was around bringing children back to their locality after being sent to a residential setting, and what that is all about, and whether or not the support for families is there when that young person comes back to their local community. Issues with school transports that's now affecting the child's attendance, because we've had conversations in our local areas that's the key, you know, that a child can't attend because there isn't a taxi or there isn't a school bus. And so therefore they can't attend, and parents don't drive. The child's needs not being met because of COVID, so the COVID recovery work. Tribunal case studies around, obviously the waiting list for tribunals now is over 12 months. So we actually are having case studies around that, and information that we can use and share about that. And mental health emissions and risk of. So again, a very sensitive subject, but very pertinent in these times of change. So the Nnpcf in numbers, of to you, Sarah.
No, this one's you, isn't
it? we have practiced these pieces. So anyway, so our work stats, I can talk about the work stats, I don't mind. So we've been really, really busy. Every year we're really busy, we keep telling you that, but this is what we wanted to share with you, that we've actually done as an organisation 1,655 days of work, which actually equates to 331% of our KPI. That's the key performance indicator as part of the participation grant from the DfE. So that's where we get our money from for these pieces of work. In that, we've had 2,325 different activities, and the work included in that is very large chunk of it is the Send AP green paperwork. Schools bill before it got sent away, and actually is now joining a lot of the Send AP work. So they've sort of devolved into that. DBV, which I've talked about before, Ofsted and CQC local area inspection framework, which Sarah's also touched on. We've also done conferences, and one of them is the National Association of Principal EP, so educational psychologists. We spoke at their conference, which is an important piece of work around co-production, and actually got feedback from that from parent carer forums around what an EP is, and we shared that in that conference. And of course, I alluded to it earlier, but the Education Select Committee, and there's been other select committees that we've been part of as well. So how we piece together.
This one is me.
I thought it was.
So how the Nnpcf works is that we have the 9 regions that are laid out by the DFE, as you all know, and hopefully you're active members in your region. Each region has a regional representative that sits on our steering group, of which we are 10 because London get 2. And then there are 152 member forums, which is probably the most important part, along with your membership. And we are supported by 6 in our management team that help us with comms and finances, consultations, participation. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. So we are a well supported machine in all aspects. Next slide. But this is where have we gone? So the most important part for me is everybody from our parent carers that feed into your local forums and the work that our local forums do, because every year the demand gets bigger. You guys are amazing, and the quality of the work that you all do absolutely comes shining through in all of the information that we receive. It never ceases to amaze me how much the ask gets bigger and bigger every year. We see it within our local forum as well, and it just staggers me what we achieve on so little. And we really do. We are also really acutely aware, and I think it's something that's very current, not particularly last year, but this year, the pressure that forums are under, that line that we're all walking around being challenging to our local authorities and representing that voice, and the families understanding how frustrated we are as well within the system and how hard we all work to change that lived experience, because it really is important. And it's why we get out of bed in the morning and we do the work that we do for parent carer forums. So a huge thank you to you all, because it really is the most important part, and we couldn't do it without you, and without you feeding into your regions and feeding into the national role.
I'm just consciously aware that there's some questions in the chat. Will come to them at the end, because we've got some really important information to share that's to do with all your hard work. You know, you're all part of forums, and we need to share this because we are truly grateful and thankful for all the work that you do. And these figures just share how busy and how great you are. So there has been 151,526 people involved in consultations, drop-in sessions, surveys, crucial decision making within local authority areas. You've got 1,236 parent carers that are directly involved in running a forum or organising parent participation work. 1,770 parent carers represented families strategically in local meetings with services providers and partner organisations. And your social media reach collectively is 327,697, which is huge and is such a massive increase year on year. But again, we've got some really important information to share. So the membership of the Nnpcf with all your hard work. So 2017, it was 80,000. Last year, you raised it to 111,000. And I wish that we had a drum roll at this point, because the figure has gone up to this year. So amazing, well done. We are now 127,921. And I'm getting all emotional about this because it's all down to your hard work. Obviously, the negative side of this membership is actually that the SEND reforms really do need to take hold. I think there's a lot of people that are really unhappy with the services that they are getting. So we really do need to make sure that we keep that message, we keep feeding back to this, to the national work. And the only way we can do that is to work in your regions. But again, we'll touch on the regional format in a minute. So your feedback is really, really essential, which is why we need to make sure that you can tell us what's important to you. And we'll look at questions in a second. So thank you to everybody that is part of that work. Thank you just doesn't seem enough, and we do really appreciate everything that you do. We are also mindful that every single person is a parent carer, and cares or has a caring responsibility for a child and young person that has got additional needs, including our management team. So our management team are all parent carers too. And whilst they don't sit in forums or they're not part of forums, some do, some don't, they are all parent carers. And that is something that we're proud of as an organisation, is that everybody has caring responsibilities to someone, and it's usually a child or a young person with SEND. So thank you, it really does mean a lot. And it just doesn't seem a big enough word to say to you for all your hard work. You really are superstars. So Sarah, over to you.
Oh, sorry. You actually stole my slide, but we were obviously mixing it up. So what we decided to do this year is to repeat the Menti survey, because actually it's really important that we co-produce and we hear what your priorities are so that we can plan for the future. So come the new year, we're going to be looking at the year coming forward. So we have presented, we have got a Menti survey, which we will share the link. Thank you. The link is here, but we're going to keep it open for a couple of weeks. So all of those that aren't here today, and we can give our forums time to respond to that so that we can actually collate as much feedback as we can from all of you and make sure that we're setting our priorities accurately for the year coming forward.
Yeah. So we're not going to share it today. We did this last year and we didn't share. What we're going to do is share the findings at the conference in Newcastle at the end of February. And those who are asking, booking will be released for that conference as soon as the virtual conference is finished.
We will share the code across social media in our closed group, and we will email it all out to you individually as well.
Yeah. So then we can form what our business plan looks like. Ta-da, like that. So we'll collate it and create our business plan and our Nnpcf strategy. We will present those plans at the conference in Newcastle, and we will continue sharing our news and consultation responses on our website, which is what we're doing. And just so you know, so far this year, so last year we did 11 consultations and reviews. This year so far, we've done at least 8 of them. I think there's actually more than that now. So the consultations, because of all this SEND Act work, the SEND AP work that is happening currently in the government, there is loads of consultations, of which our consultation lead is trying to wade through and see what is relevant to children, young people with SEND. So there's lots of consultations that are live, and we've really got, so our consultation lead shares something called a sway very often, probably once a month, and all of that is our current consultation stuff that we've got going on. So please do take a look at it, because it's really important that we feed it.
It's also on our website, so you can access it at any time and find it.
So any concerns or any information that you're stuck on after the event, please do email us. We're happy to take some chats or conversations on offline as well. So please do contact us. But we can open it out to conversations here, because I'm just mindful that
all the questions have actually been answered within the chat, which is really helpful.
So if you
thank you to Elaine for posting some of the links. That was really helpful.
It's really helpful. Thank you, Elaine and Claire Richmond. So can PCF still be a member of the Nnpcf if they don't apply for the grant? Elaine, they can't be a member if they don't get the DFE grant, actually. I don't know.
I thought the MOU was signed and it was in agreement.
Yes. Oh, yeah, but if they don't apply for the grant, it depends on the circumstances. You're right, Sarah. So if the forum don't want to apply for the grant, but the MOU is signed with the local authority and health, yes, they can still be members of the Nnpcf. But if that MOU is not signed and contact is involved, then no, until the MOU is signed. So the MOU is the key into that. You're right. Yeah. Any other questions? Please put your hand up. We can, if not, we can give you some time back, whatever you want to do. If you put your hand up, we can unlock your camera and microphone. No, we've silenced them. If you do think of anything after this event, and you will get.
Oh, Phil has got her hand up, Tina. How do we unlock them? Do you know how to do that?
Yeah. Oh, I've just locked her. Somebody else has just done it. Yeah. Hello. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, let me. Oh, hold on a minute. Hold on. I think there. You should be able to unmute.
You all thought you were getting away with it. Always me with a question. Apologies.
No, it's right to apologise.
I just wanted to take us back to the start of the meeting, and the points around the priorities for the Nnpcf and all PCFs. And I know Ruth's running a session tonight for peer-to-peer support. But you mentioned that hard nut to crack, the well-being of parent carers.
Yeah. From a national perspective.
Yeah. And you know, and often we look to you guys for guidance and sort of want to have it rolled out. And because we knew that was a priority and that it had been addressed to be looked at and we all voted on, I think there was a bit of an expectation from us, at least, that something would be coming. So managing my expectations, how far along that piece of work is it? Is it 10% or 50%?
No. So it has, it's been part of our conversation. So we have done work on it. So I can share with you that actually we've got, so we're doing trauma-informed training for all of the steering group members. So the response training, that other training out there for trauma-informed. So currently there's 2 of us that have been trained. There is going to be all of the steering group are going to do the training. We've got, I think, 5 members that are mental health first aiders within our team as well. There are other things, I can't remember the list, but there's a whole list that actually our finance lead, funnily enough, compiled, because it was a question that we sort of asked around the expense of. And the other thing we're sort of looking at, because from a national perspective, it's really difficult to say to you in a local side of things, it's quite difficult to manage that. The other thing is about the expert parenting program. So what I've found is that there is a free online expert parenting courses that CDC do, but we just need to actually do them to see if they're worthwhile and whether or not it will fill that, not gap, but help and support families. We don't want to say something that then has a really negative impact. I do recommend the trauma-informed training because I think it's really vital. A lot of our families are affected by trauma, and often the responses that we get from them is because they've been traumatized through the system, and so it's really important that we look at that. But certainly it's not that we've not done any work on it, but we've been a little bit cautious about saying what we've done because we wouldn't want to recommend something and it not be fit for purpose. Does that make sense?
Yes. So happy to offer myself up as guinea pig for anything that you might need to, if you're looking to test as a test subject. We're happy to do that in Southend.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. We appreciate it.
We will do. But certainly I think the expert parenting program might be of use because it's all online. It's an e-learning, which I think is really good for families. The respond training is 9 till 3. And so for some families that might not work. So it's trying to find the right method but we are looking into it. It's definitely something we're taking really seriously.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
There is a question around the slides. Are the slides going to be shared on our website?
Yeah. I think we're going to send them out. I don't know if we're going to put them on the website.
Okay, they'll be posted out. Okay, we'll check that.
Yeah. Jo, do you want to come in, Jo Green?
Thank you. As I say, you don't need to put the camera on. It was just around, I did pop it in the chat, because I came a bit late to the session, I didn't see the priorities. So I just asked about whether the slide for the priorities could be put on the screen or how I can access what the priorities are.
Yeah, if you bear with, I will do that for you now.
Thank you. That's just my own fault.
No. It's parent carer land. We understand it. So these what was voted on last year. So at the AGM last year we did a Menti, and this is what people voted on. So the thing that they wanted the most was the well-being of parent carers, which is why Phil, quite rightly, is holding us to account for it.
Okay.
And like I said, we are trying to pull all the resources together because we don't want to send something out and actually not be fit for purpose.
Mm-hmm.
For our parent carers. Obviously the Send AP work is important and actually is the bread and butter of our work currently. It's the most that we feed into. And how to make sure that the ongoing work is to improve the systems here and now. We're actually not asking that question in the Mentor this year because it actually is, it's self-explanatory. What we try and do is always, when we go to these meetings, it's not just about what's happening in the future, it's about, so what about the families now? They're not getting what they need. They're telling us that they're not getting what they need. How can we make sure that they do, and what things are we putting in place now? The partnership working with ICSs, so of course that's a new thing last year, and I'm going to cough, so Sarah, do you want to carry on?
So yeah, ICBs have gone through lots of different fluxes. So there is also a part of the virtual conference. There was a session yesterday that you can have a look at, but we work with our partner Send leads in health nationally, and we also work with them regionally as well. So there's lots of input in there, and it works slightly differently in different areas depending on how many of you are cross-border with your DFE partners. I'm really lucky in the southeast that pretty much we map identically with health other than one of our areas, so it's much easier, but lots of you within local authorities might have multiple ICSs that you're dealing with. So yes, all of that is looked at and we work with that. Sorry, Andrea's put a question in around autism in school training. Which areas have been doing it for 2 years to support those that have just started rolling it out? Would you like to answer that one, Tina?
I'll try, but I am having a coughing fit, so apologies.
Sorry.
I've now got strepsil. Okay, so Andrew, that's slightly more complicated than it actually is, and the reason being is that different regions are in different places. But I suggest you would talk to your regional rep. I don't know who your regional rep is. So if you go to your regional rep of the Nnpcf, they'll be able to tell you which areas are at what point. I can tell you from the southwest, but I can't tell you all the other regions because they're all different. So some areas have been doing it for 3 years or in their 3rd year. Some have only been doing it for 2, and some have been doing it. Oh, Andrew, you're in my area, so I can clearly tell you what that is. So in year 1, it was BCP, so Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. It was supposed to be Cornwall, but they lagged because of issues within their local authority area. So they're only they started in year 2, and the Isles of Scilly did it in year 1 as well. In year 2, it was Cornwall. It was going to be Devon, Dorset. And when I say Devon, it's going to be Devon, Torbay and Plymouth. And Somerset. Somerset, again, has not started its programme, but we're covering half of the southwest. In year 3, we're having now conversations about how we can deliver something with the remnants of the funding. And as we touched on yesterday in my presentation with NHS England, North Somerset did their own thing with Bristol and South Gloss and spent the autism money that they had. And they've done their own thing. Happy to pick this up outside the call, but again, it's all about best use of money and actually how the money, we don't know what it's going to look like in regards to funding and whether or not that's going to be devolved down to the ICSs. But what we do know is
probably worth mentioning as well that the funding hasn't been ring-fenced for autism in school projects. So those areas that have had them running, the money has gone to the ICSs, ICBs, and actually they are able to choose how they spend that money on neurodiversity, I believe it is. It's given quite a broad, it doesn't have to be spent currently on autism's in school projects.
But they do have to use it's recommended they use it for autism in schools or the pathway. Nice. But again, that money is supposed to be used by March. So please go and have a conversation with your ICB lead or ICS lead. If you're stuck, please come back to me. I'll put my email address in the chat. and you know, you can contact me and we can touch base. I hope that's helpful, Andrea. So put in the chat.
She said thank you. Brilliant.
Oh, you're welcome. I think, any more questions before we close the session? No. All that's left to say is thank you so much for all your efforts of the last year. We know that it's going to be even harder this coming year. We're always halfway through it anyway. But the work is ongoing, and we really do appreciate everything that you do for not just us, but for all the parent carers that you've got in your local area. We are grateful to you for sharing our feedback and feeding into us, into our work, because we can only do it if we've got you on board. So really do appreciate it. Anything from you, Sarah?
Just to say a big thank you as well. We really appreciate all the efforts, and your work does not go unnoticed. We can promise you that much. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you very much.